Hi, kiddos. Today I'm going to read chapter 17 and 18. Hope you enjoy them. Okay, I'm ready to give up, Elena. I groaned. I leaned over and picked up my backpack, now completely empty, and tucked it under my arm. Maybe this trip just wasn't meant to be. Elena didn't answer. She pulled herself up to her hands and knees and looked at Mama's letters scattered across the porch. The portico. A breeze had caught up several and sent them out into the gutter. She picked up the one closest to her, blew the dirt off the paper, and looked at the words scrawled on the page. She held the letter open in both palms like an offering, then let it drift back to the ground. Her eyes searched around the dim light. She bent closer and then got down on her hands and the tips of her toes, moving like a crab over the dirt, her face close to the ground, examining every square centimeter as she went. Elena seemed to be looking for a particular letter, one that had special meaning for her. But she ignored each and every one that she came across. Finally, she stopped, even lower, and picked up something from the ground. Gracias a Dios. Thank God, she murmured. She stood and walked unsteadily toward me. In her hands was a cloth purse that had held Mama's letters. Come on, Miguel. Let's get out of here. She looked around nervously. There was no sign of Colmillo, and there was no sign of anyone. Even the rats had disappeared. Let me help you with these. I picked up one letter close to my shoe, folded it across the well-creased lines, and held it to Elena to stow in the bag. The letters seemed important to me now. They were the only things we had left. Forget them, Miguel. Olvídalo. Forget it. Let's just go, please. Elena reached down for my hand to help me up. It was already held out, but her hand was cold and clammy. I groaned as I rose to my feet. Every part of me hurt. Are you sure, Elena? I asked. The letters, these letters. We have to get out of here. Elena cut me off. Elena must have really been scared to death by Colmillo. What else would make her leave the precious letters? She steered me out toward the portico and out to the street. Dawn would come soon. The barest hint of light was visible to the east, and the sky turned a deep blue. We turned the corner and entered the far side of the mercado, cutting behind the row of stalls that we first hid from Morales. A few farmers who came in to sell their mangos and chilies unloaded their goods from their backs of their burros. They looked at us cautiously, curiously, and then went back to their work. I looked down at my filthy, torn clothes. We probably looked like fugitives. The farmers would be better off if they pretended they'd never seen us. Aquí, here, said Elena. She sat down on the ground to the very place where I'd taken the money she'd gotten from Juanito. Elena turned the cloth purse inside out and put it to her mouth. She tore at the silky purple lining with her teeth, again and again, trying to find a spot that would give away. A small tear finally appeared at one seam, now soaked with Elena's saliva. She lowered the bag, put one index finger in the tear, and ripped the lining apart. A cascade of bills fell out from the purse onto Elena's lap. She gathered them up and put them in my hands. This is the other half of the money Juanito gave me. Big tears rolled down Elena's cheeks. For once, she had good reason to cry. She had 1,000 good reasons to cry. I sewed it into the lining here, just in case. She pulled her knees to her chin and hid her face. Embustera! Liar! I said, looking at the little treasure in my hands. Elena had been tricky. She had lied to me about how much money Juanito had given her, but she'd taken the precaution of hiding half of it. I'll go back home, Miguel. I'll go back by myself and you go ahead. She dried her tears with the back of one dirty hand. Maybe there's still enough money for you, if you're careful. I was solemn. She wasn't whining. She meant it. I looked at my sister hard. Despite everything she'd done wrong, she'd won my admiration. I even admired her sneakiness. She'd done everything without giving herself away. I never had a clue about her intentions, not one of them. Then together we escaped Morales and Colmillo by the skin of our teeth. Whatever we did, we had to do it as brother and sister. We'd been through too much to separate us now. If Elena went to San Jacinto, I'd go too. If I went north, I'd take her with me. Still, there wasn't enough money to pay the coyote for both of us. We needed help. Look, Elena, I think we should call Papa and Mama. They'll be worried anyway. And if worse comes to worse, we could ask Don Clemente for more money, I said. I didn't tell her that he would have given us all the money we wanted. All we had to do was ask. Elena looked down at her nails. They were chewed down so badly that several were bleeding. She knew that she'd be in trouble for following me, but she nodded silently in agreement. So we made our way to the bus station, got a large pile of coins, and stood close together next to the payphone. I dialed the California phone number. Elena pumped in the coins, and the phone rang. It rang and rang and rang. A weary, unfamiliar female voice finally answered. No, Papa and Mama didn't live there anymore. Yes, they'd moved. No, she didn't know the new number. Elena and I looked at each other, unsurprised. The family had to move too often, and often unexpectedly. Abuelita, one way or another, would have the new number, but Abuelita had no phone. Don Clemente, Elena suggested. Maybe Papa called him with the new phone number. Don Clemente's private number was first on the list of important information I'd memorized. Do not call unless you must, had been written in his own hand. I nodded and dialed. Hola, who's calling? Demanded a familiar voice. What was Juanito doing with Don Clemente's phone? I wanted to hang up right then. I wanted to tell Juanito I knew what he was up to when he lent Elena money. I wanted to tell him to go and screw himself. Instead, I just said, let me talk to Don Clemente. It's Miguel. A silence followed. Juanito, are you there? Are you there? I asked. I thought I heard him chuckle. What do you want, Miguel? I thought my Theo gave you everything you wanted. Just put him on. I need to ask him something. I wouldn't give Juanito the satisfaction of knowing what had happened to us. Well, you'll have to ask me now. Juanito's voice was calm and cold. What do you mean? I asked. But I didn't want to know the answer. Juanito didn't answer. He just let the silence hang on the line. Don Clemente is dead, he finally answered. A traffic accident. Somehow his Mercedes went off the road up the mountain. It was tragic, really a freak sort of thing. He didn't sound like he thought it was a tragedy. So naturally, I'm in charge now of his operation, of all the networks, the coyotes, the polleros. Polleros is another word for a smuggler. The merchandise, everything. If you want something, you'll have to ask me. And I'm replacing his people with mine, those with loyalty to me. I didn't answer. I hung up the phone and I put the phone on the hook quietly. With this conversation, the road back to San Jacinto was closed. I couldn't let Elena return by herself. She'd already owed Juanito money. He might decide she owed him more than just that. We had to go north with no clear plans and with no help we could count on. I took the money, split it right down the middle, half for Elena, half for myself. I couldn't pretend I was her boss anymore. We bought food and a rundown hotel room for one night. Elena sat on the edge of the sagging mattress and carefully sewed her money back into the lining of the bag. I could hide mine on my body. There was at least one good place. But who was I kidding? If someone wanted it, they'd find it no matter where I stuck it. The only thing I had left from the beginning of my trip was Abuelita's Virgen de Guadalupe medallion, the Virgin Mary. With everything that had happened, I'd forgotten all about it. I took it off and inspected the links on the chain, one by one. A couple of Abuelita's hairs still clung stubbornly to the necklace, as if part of her refused to be separated from La Virgen. Abuelita believed in La Virgen's powers, of its protection and guidance. I just believed in Abuelita. I checked the clasp and I checked the medallion, and I put the medallion around my neck. It had seemed feather light before, but now the cool, smooth metal felt solid and weighty against my chest. Okay. Okay, chapter 18. They called it the mala gente, the people killer. It was an ordinary freight train that passed through the city once a day, and it was one way to get north without paying a peso. It had oil cars, rounded, sleek, and shiny, and open hopper cars carrying grain or scrap metal. Ladders ran halfway up, the sides of the faded orange, yellow, and brown cargo cars. It was simple, they said. As the train slowed, you ran alongside and grabbed one of the ladders and hopped on. Fácil, easy. Everyone told us how easy it was to hop on board of the train, and everyone told us about the unlucky ones who didn't make it. The ones who still survived were all over town, broken and abandoned, but still living. They were everywhere. A woman they called Angelita sat outside the shabby clinic, telling her story to anyone who would listen. The train had cut off both her legs mid-thigh when she lost her grip and fell beneath the wheels. She would have died if two others hadn't jumped off to drag her from beneath the train and stop the blood flowing from her limbs. Another, called Santos, wheeled himself clumsily through the Zocalo, that's the plaza, begging for money so he could return to his family in Honduras. He was paralyzed from the waist down, and all 4 fingers of his right hand were gone. They said Santos was pushed off the train. Someone had wanted his place on the ladder that already held 5 others. We're going to hop on the Mata Gente anyway, I declared to Elena. We watched Santos steer his wheelchair toward the bus station. There were always people willing to give a peso or 2 out of guilt. They were getting out of here. Santos had to stay. Okay, Miguel. We're young and fast, right, Miguel? Elena added. Maybe Santos was just too slow or something. I didn't remind her that we had no choice. We walked to the train yard in the early evening. A gentle breeze lifted up some scattered papers. Halfway there, Elena skipped, then hopped, then showed me just once how fast she could run. See, Miguel? See, I can do it. I know, I yelled to her. Si se puede. Yes, we can. We will, Elena. Things had changed between us. I know how it felt to be macho, to try to boss Elena around, to ignore her, to fight with her, like I did in San Jacinto. Things felt different now, since Morales, since Colmillo, and Juanito. We crossed through the yard, littered with sidetracked, broken-down freight cars. I put my ear down on the track to listen for the train, the way Chuy and Lalo and I used to in San Jacinto. The hot, fat metal rail held no clues. I crawled up into one of the cars and pulled Elena up after me. Its big doors gaped open, and we sat with our legs dangling down. From here we could see the Manta Gente coming. We'd have time to position ourselves and get ready. In the near distance, a small group was making its way onto the train yard. One of them pointed and gestured and moved his body along the track as if he were shadowing a moving train. He loped and picked up speed and grabbed an imaginary ladder. And then I heard a familiar voice talking nonstop to the others. See, that is how you do it, he instructed. You just run and then hop right on. Look who's here, Miguel, Elena yelled, jumping down. Come on. Within seconds, Javier had Elena in a giant abrazo, a giant hug. He reached out to pull me into the circle. I felt myself resist, but Elena grabbed my waist and they tugged me in, closer. We made a triangle, Javi and Elena in the base and me floating loosely at the top. I knew I'd see you again. It's fate, really, Javi said. Javi's companions, a young couple, the woman pregnant, smiled at the reunion. Then they turned around and left, going back the way they'd come. They're scared of the train, they're scared of the train. I told them what to do, and who knows, maybe they'll try, maybe they won't, Javier said in one breath. Good thing that you're leaving. I'm glad to get out of here myself, he continued. Morales stuck me in the jail for 1 day. He never figured out I tricked him. Then he put me on the other side of the river, but just like I told you, here I am again. Javi seemed happy, even joyful, about tricking Morales and making it back, but his eyes were red and his face was drawn. He hadn't slept. I could see that. Within seconds, Javi put himself in charge and took each of us by arm and propelled us to the train tracks. We'll get the train down here. He pointed beyond the end of the yard toward the dense underbush. It's better. I've checked it out already. The Federales swing through the train yard every now and then. We followed the tracks for several hundred meters. Then the grass on both sides was firmly packed down, evidence that many transhoppers had waited here before us. In the thick underground beyond the grass, others had to cut the brush to make places to sleep or to hide. A dead campfire blackened the ground. In one spot, a faint wisp of smoke crept up from the center. A pack of yellow-eyed dogs emerged from one of the bushes and wandered toward us, sniffing the ground. The leader eyed us boldly. I picked up a rock and flung it to his direction. Javi ran after the dog, screaming, "Go on, get out of here. Lárganse de aquí. Get the heck out of here." I hope the dogs weren't like the rats. Another bad omen. Okay, questions on the description side. Hope you're enjoying the story. Hasta luego.